Have you ever wondered how a creature as small and silent as a frog could fuel one of the fastest-growing protein industries on Earth? Behind steel gates and echoing factory halls, millions of frogs are raised, harvested, and processed with breathtaking precision, turning tiny tadpoles into nearly 5 billion pounds of meat every single year. It's a world where water never stops moving, conveyor belts hum like mechanical rivers, and a single facility can chill, skin, and pack tens of thousands of frogs before the sun sets. But the story doesn't begin in the factory. It begins in warm, shaded breeding tanks, where carefully selected parent frogs spawn clusters of eggs that will feed a global appetite stretching from rural diners to premium restaurants across the U.S. and Europe. As these tadpoles grow, farms manage acres of ponds, pumping thousands of gallons of filtered water each hour to keep them alive. By the time they reach market size, the system has already shaped their fate with industrial accuracy. Inside the processing plants, the scale feels almost unreal. Stainless steel tables, freezing rooms kept at 4 degrees Fahrenheit, and grading lines that sort frog legs with the same precision you'd see in aerospace manufacturing. Every movement is calculated, every second matters, and every pound of meat represents a long chain of human labor, rural livelihoods, and a global demand that shows no sign of slowing down. So before we step deeper into this hidden world, into the breeding tanks, the grow-out ponds, and the massive factories that transform amphibians into high-value exports, here's a question for you. Do you think frog farming represents a sustainable future for protein? Or just another industrial system pushing the limits of nature? Comment 1 if you believe it's sustainable, or 0 if you believe it's not, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of this journey. In the quietest corner of every frog farm, far from the steel and noise of the factories, the entire industry begins with something almost invisible. Clusters of eggs no bigger than beads of glass. Yet inside these dim, shaded tanks, each holding over 1,000 gallons of carefully balanced water, millions of future frog legs are already in motion. Breeding is a science of precision. Farmers select only the strongest males and females, judging them by muscle tone, skin clarity, and resistance to disease. Each parent pair becomes the foundation for thousands of offspring. When the breeding season arrives, the water is warmed to 77–82 degrees Fahrenheit, replicating the conditions of tropical monsoon ponds. Under this controlled warmth, males clasp the females in amplexus, releasing clouds of sperm as strings of eggs adhere to mesh panels or floating mats. Within hours, the tanks transform into living constellations, tiny black embryos pulsing with life. But survival is fragile. Sensors track temperature swings within tenths of a degree. If the water drops even 4 degrees Fahrenheit, development can stall. If oxygen dips too low, thousands can perish in minutes. By day 3, the eggs tremble and split open. Tadpoles spill out like ink across the tank floor, soft, dark, defenseless. Over the next 4 to 6 weeks, they grow hind legs, then front legs, shedding their tails as their lungs begin to form. At this stage, size becomes destiny. If left together, smaller tadpoles are quickly outcompeted, so farmers sort them into separate tanks, one by one, a process that can involve more than 50,000 juveniles on a medium-sized farm. The atmosphere here feels strangely serene, almost sacred. There's no machinery, no clanging metal, just the constant hum of water circulation and the sense that everything depends on balance. Every gallon of water, every degree of heat, every microgram of feed determines how many will make it to the next chapter. And soon, these fragile metamorphs will leave the stillness of the breeding tanks behind and enter the grow-out ponds' vast engineered ecosystems, where the race toward market weight truly begins. If the breeding tanks are the nursery of the industry, then the grow-out ponds are its vast, beating heart. Here, the scale suddenly explodes. Acres of engineered ponds stretch out like reflective plates, each lined with durable plastic sheeting and reinforced berms. Powerful pumps move thousands of gallons of filtered water every hour, creating a controlled ecosystem built for one purpose: turning juveniles into market-ready protein. The moment young frogs enter these ponds, everything changes. They're no longer fragile tadpoles, they're athletes in a biological race. Stocking density is calculated down to the square foot. Too many, and stress triggers disease. Too few, and the farm loses precious yield. High-volume farms may hold 30,000 to 50,000 frogs per acre, but only under relentless water management. Overhead, nylon netting stretches like a protective sky, blocking predatory birds while softening harsh sunlight. A single outage can threaten tens of thousands of frogs, so backup generators sit quietly on standby, ready to roar to life. Feeding becomes the daily ritual that shapes their growth. Workers scatter floating protein pellets fortified to more than 35% protein, enriched with vitamins and probiotics. The evening feeding rush is almost cinematic. Thousands of frogs surfacing at once, rippling the pond like a living carpet. Some farms supplement with insects or small aquatic organisms to mimic natural hunting instincts, helping frogs build firm muscle. Growth is astonishingly fast. With optimal density, clean water, and protein-rich diets, frogs can reach 0.33 to 0.55 pounds in just 3.5 to 5 months. But every gain is fragile. Overfeeding fouls the water. Underfeeding slows development. Farmers constantly adjust feed rates, watching for subtle signs, sluggish movement, uneven sizes, or rising ammonia levels. Across the ponds, the air carries a strange mix of humidity, earth, and the quiet urgency of an operation that never truly stops. Each frog that thrives here is already marked for a destination far beyond the farm, toward the steel and freezing rooms of the processing plant, where growth ends and transformation begins. Inside the processing plant, the shift from quiet ponds to industrial precision is immediate. The air is colder, the lights brighter, and everything moves with a strict rhythm. Frogs arriving from the farm are rinsed in clean water to remove mud, then moved directly to long stainless steel tables where the skinning process begins. Workers hold each frog firmly and pull the skin off in a single, practiced motion. It's fast, repetitive work, built on accuracy rather than force, and it's the step that prepares the meat for every stage that follows. Once skinned, the frogs are transferred into chilled wash tanks. Cold, lightly treated water removes surface bacteria and firms the muscle, preparing the hind legs the most valuable cut for trimming. At the trimming station, workers separate the legs with small knives, checking color and texture before sending them to the cooling room. In the cooling area, temperatures stay between 32 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit, slowing bacterial growth and helping the meat retain moisture. Trays of frog legs stack across metal racks, each batch labeled for traceability. For export markets such as Europe, Japan, and the United States, a second wash is added to meet strict hygiene standards before grading. Grading sorts the legs by consistency and size. Small pairs around 1.8 ounces, medium cuts near 3 ounces, and large export-grade portions exceeding 4 ounces. A mid-size plant can move several tons of legs through this step per day, with workers checking weight and shape to keep shipments uniform. Freezing is the final step that locks in quality. The graded legs are arranged into shallow molds and frozen at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, or quick frozen for premium orders. The rapid drop in temperature preserves texture and prevents ice crystals from forming inside the meat. Once frozen solid, the legs are packed into 2.24.4 pounds blocks, vacuum sealed, labeled, and stacked into cold storage for global shipment. The process is not glamorous, just water running, steel surfaces, and teams repeating the same precise steps hour after hour. But this consistency is what allows frog meat to travel thousands of miles while staying fresh. From here, the frozen blocks enter the final stage: packaging and distribution through tightly controlled cold chain networks. Once the frog legs are frozen solid, the production floor shifts from cold steel tables to the organized flow of the packing line. Workers move trays of frozen blocks onto weighing stations, where each portion, typically 2.2 to 4.4 pounds, is checked for accuracy before sealing. Vacuum pack machines remove air from the bags, locking the meat inside thick plastic that protects it from freezer burn and keeps moisture stable during long transport. The sealed blocks slide down the conveyor into labeling stations, where every package receives its batch code, processing date, and destination. Export orders require stricter documentation, especially shipments bound for the United States, the European Union, or Japan, so additional health certificates and inspection tags are attached to each carton. Uniformity is essential. Importers expect every box to look identical, weigh the same, and match the standards promised by the farm. After labeling, workers stack the vacuum-packed blocks into corrugated cartons lined with insulation. These boxes are then wrapped on pallets and moved into holding freezers, maintained near 0 degrees Fahrenheit, where they wait for transport trucks. Temperature control never stops. Even a brief rise in heat can compromise texture, so sensors track every pallet, sending alerts if the cold chain slips by even a few degrees. From the factory, refrigerated trucks carry the cargo to ports or airports, connecting the rural farms of Southeast Asia with global markets. The journey might span thousands of miles across the Pacific to Los Angeles, across the Indian Ocean to Dubai, or north toward Europe's high-demand restaurant hubs. Throughout the trip, the cold chain remains unbroken, preserving the delicate texture that chefs expect when those frog legs finally reach their kitchens. What began as tiny tadpoles in shaded ponds is now a precisely handled export product, wrapped, frozen, and traveling across continents. And as these shipments move through ports and warehouses, the story of frog farming enters its final chapter, the impact of this rising industry on global protein supply. From the outside, frog farming looks deceptively simple: ponds, tanks, water, and workers tending to small, quiet animals. But when you follow the journey from breeding rooms to industrial cold lines, a different picture emerges. A global protein network built on precision, timing, and the discipline of thousands of hands working in sync. Every stage carries weight. A shift of just a few degrees in the breeding tanks can determine whether millions of eggs survive. A small drop in water quality in the grow-out ponds can erase months of work. And inside the factory, the speed of a single trimming line can influence the output of entire export shipments. Frog farming isn't just an agricultural niche. It's an intricate chain of biology and industry woven tightly together. Yet beyond the machinery and cold rooms, the true impact stretches further. In rural communities across Southeast Asia, frog farming has become a lifeline: steady income during unstable seasons, new jobs for families, and a path for small farms to connect with international buyers. What once was a local village dish now supports a trade measured in millions of tons, reaching supermarkets and premium restaurants across the United States, Europe, and Japan. But scale brings responsibility. The industry depends on water clean, abundant, constantly circulating. It depends on disease control, waste management, and farming practices that protect surrounding ecosystems. And it depends on trust. Consumers betting that what arrives on their plate was raised and handled with care. The future of frog farming isn't just about producing more, it's about producing wisely. Standing at the end of the production line, looking at blocks of frozen frog legs stacked for shipment, it's easy to forget the journey behind them. The quiet spawning tanks, the grow-out ponds shimmering under nets, the workers in cold rooms repeating careful motions hour after hour. Every pound of meat carries the story of people, water, temperature, and time. And maybe that's the real lesson. Even the most unassuming foods, small creatures raised in still ponds, can reveal a world of complexity when we follow them to their source. A world that asks us to think deeper about what we eat, where it comes from, and the systems that make it possible. Thank you for staying with this journey until the end. If this changed the way you see farming, factories, or the hidden work behind everyday foods, make sure to subscribe and join us again for the next story waiting behind the gates of modern agriculture.